Ruto begins running for his life. As more monsters like the kaiju start to emerge, the three monsters waste no time surrounding him from all sides. In this dire moment, he notices what they really are. Beings manifested from piles of trash. He doesn't understand how this is even possible or how he's supposed to handle the situation. The only thing he can do is rely on his sharp reflexes to avoid being struck while running. He stumbles and comes across a human skull. Realizing it won't be long before he ends up just like this lifeless skull in front of him. He doesn't want to accept the inevitable. But what else can he do? He curses the apostles for throwing him into this pit. Even though he didn't deserve it, and wonders where did things go wrong. The unstable pile of trash beneath him crumbles and he crashes downward, injuring himself severely. He can barely move anymore. This is an unsurvivable situation. There isn't any breathable air, and every time he inhales, it feels like his lungs are being torn apart by the dust, constantly flooding into his body. He knows he can't last long, so his only hope is to find someplace safe. But as far as his eyes can see, there are only endless mountains of trash, leaving him mortified by the grim reality that maybe this really is the end. Ruto pukes blood, indicating that his body has started to give up, even though he hasn't mentally. The monster's close in, so maybe this is it. As the end seems near, he just lays there and recalls his loved ones, especially his foster father, Reg, who didn't deserve to die. Ruto knows he can't give up yet. Not until he gets revenge on the one who murdered Reg. At that very moment, a mysterious power awakens within him. Something that pushes him to fight back again. With the last of his strength, he grabs a steel pipe lying beside him and gets up to fight for his life. He vows not to give up until he makes those responsible pay for unjustly branding him a criminal despite his innocence, and most importantly until he finds his father's murderer. With that goal in mind, he swings his weapon at the monster, sending it crashing backward. Meanwhile, somewhere else in this massive trash pit, a strange man with an umbrella reveals to be watching Ruto's battle from the distance using binoculars. As for who this man is, we will find that out sooner or later. Ruto uses his speed to his advantage and goes completely berserk with his uncoordinated attacks. He gets shoved back by the monster and takes significant damage. But thanks to the adrenaline, he feels no pain and attacks again, throwing the steel pipe like a boomerang. Another monster emerges from beneath his feet, forcing him to fall back. As he takes a second to breathe, the pain finally hits, and he begins bleeding from his mouth, but the frenzy continues. He charges again, this time completely tearing one of the monsters in half using a piece of tin roofing. Taking down one monster is a great feat, but Ruto has reached his limit. He can't handle the next monster charging at him. The monster slams its head into the ground, sending shockwaves that launch Ruto into the air. Right beneath the man we saw earlier, the man wears a mask to survive the toxic atmosphere and carries an umbrella even though it isn't raining. He says nothing and kicks Ruto for God knows what reason. Only then does he place a mask on Ruto's face, finally allowing him to breathe. Ruto asks what this place is and who the man is. But the man refuses to answer and simply tells him to shut up. When Ruto keeps yelling like an idiot, asking all sorts of questions like if this man is a local here, what this pit is, and if it in the underground, the man loses it and yells back saying that they are indeed above ground and this place is just where the people of city throw all of their trash. The man explains that he was only trying to keep quiet so the monsters wouldn't hear them. Now that they're both screaming at each other, the monsters, who the man referred to as trash beasts, emerge once more. The man tells Ruto that these trash beasts can't be defeated with ordinary weapons. But luckily for Ruto, the man's umbrella is specially made. He activates its powers and it transforms into a much wackier-looking umbrella. LOL. The man calms himself, points the umbrella at the monster, and uses it like a drill to disintegrate the trash beast in seconds. More are on the way, but the man wipes out all of them in one sweep, leaving Ruto completely stunned. He finishes off the last beast using his ultimate move, Umbreaker Octa Shredder, and literally shreds the monsters from top to bottom. With the danger gone, the man walks over to Ruto again. Ruto once more asks who he is. This time the man removes his mask, reveals his face, and finally introduces himself as Engine, a cleaner of this pit. Of course, in this case, cleaner has a deeper meaning, hinting that he's part of a secret organization that calls themselves cleaners. Engine is immediately overwhelmed by the stench of the area and starts choking, complaining about how awful the air is. He puts his mask back on and regrets ever taking it off. At this point, Ruto realizes that Engine might just be another guy like him. And now that he's gotten most of the answers he was looking for, he finally allows himself to lose consciousness. He closes his eyes and faints. He remembers when he was still with Retha. One day, he had returned to the house drenched and wet, and Retha asked him what happened. He revealed that day that he was pushed by objects, and Retha asked if he hit the objects back in return. He said no and replied that he didn't do anything because he had bought into Retha's words that if objects are treated correctly for so long, a soul will inhabit them. Rika walks up to him asking if he really believes that and insists that even he who said it knows it is just a legend that no one can determine whether it is true or not. However, he was of the opinion that he would rather believe it, that objects, if treated well, can be inhabited by a soul. He cleans his body and insists on his belief that even the towel has a soul in it because if it doesn't, how come it can clean a person's body that well? They even claim the glove he is putting on may later become a soul and help him. They both conclude that every object, maybe even the phone you are using, if treated well, can inhabit a soul. Well, enough time for dreams. Time to return to reality. Ruto returns to a reality that seems harsher than he assumed he would meet. He shouldn't be shocked. At least he is alive after the dreadful encounter he had earlier. He sees himself tied in chains and dragged on the floor. He looks up at the person dragging him and sees it is the same man he had met earlier. Not just a man, Engine, as he calls himself. Engine isn't there to baby him. He barely even cares. He keeps dragging him and Ruto wonders if it is about time that he accepts his fate in this reality. However, this means he will decide to die and there is no way he can get revenge against everyone who has wronged him. He screams to Aang and insists that Engine should let him return to the surface of the earth. Engine looks at him like a fool. What surface does he intend to go to? How will he get to the sky? In fact, the world he assumed he was coming from is no longer there. That world is called a sphere and it moves, which means it has moved away from where he was thrown. So there is no way he can return there. All Engine has said falls on deaf ears to Ruto, who still insists that if Engine doesn't return him back, he will scream and keep screaming. He begs Engine to tell him everything about the world, even about the sphere. But no, Engine isn't interested. Engine doesn't care. He doesn't even give him the benefit of a conversation. Instead, he keeps dragging him and takes him to a place where he sees several trucks. Engine leaves him there and turns away. He screams at Engine to take him away. And when he turns back to his front, he sees several people there. I am sure he doesn't even see them as people at that point. He doesn't know what they are and just hopes they won't fight him. Fortunately, at this point, they seem very harmless. They walk towards him as if they are amused by his survival. They ask him if he is from the sphere. And when they confirm that he could be from there, they remove their masks and run to him. They reveal that they haven't seen people from the sphere for a while. And when they do, they are always dead, which makes it a shock that Ruto survive. One of them steps up to help Ruto remove his chains. Ruto looks at how they react to him and concludes that they are indeed nicer than Engine. Well, his conclusion about them is actually wrong, as they are indeed worse than Engine. They tie him harder than Engine had tied him and tie him to a truck. They laugh in front of the truck, talking about how much they will gain from selling him. They will not only sell his body, they will sell his head, ear, eyes, and cut him into pieces. They wonder if he thought they loved him and remind him that everyone in that world hates spherists. As a result, people will pay through their noses for them. You must wonder why people from the spheres are hated. Well, that isn't far-fetched. People from the spheres throw their trash into the pit, poisoning the atmosphere and contaminating the air. These trashes eventually become monsters, which kill everyone. Many have lost their families to this calamity. So, all they have for the sphere is hate. One of the men takes some trash and gives it to Ruto. He asks Ruto to eat the trash and survive because they need him to be alive for the sale. And even after the sale, they will pay to watch him tortured. The man takes one of the trashes and puts it into Ruto's mouth. In anger, Ruto bites him and peels off the skin of 2 of his fingers. He eats it. He takes some of the trash and eats it, too. He tells them they keep blabbing about trash, monsters, the sphere, the pit, but he doesn't care. He is just angry. His body activates a kind of fire. This fire turns his chain into a weapon that he uses to fight. He recalls Recta's words that objects, if taken care of, can inhabit souls. And these souls can save you later. He fights and engine watches. People who use the souls in objects are called givers. The man he bites tells the others that they should fight him and go for the object he is using because givers only draw power from objects. But they are shocked when they see him take a tire and draw power from the tire too. They realize he can use more than one object and he is strong. He hits them all, and just as he is about to hit, the leader engine comes and holds his hands. The red power fueling him reduces immediately and he gets back to his senses. He doesn't understand what is happening or what had happened, but he recognizes Engine. Engine apologizes for leaving him alone, but says he did that because he wanted to know how powerful Ruto is. Now that he knows, he will tell Ruto all about his power, that world, and even the sphere, on the condition that Ruto joins the cleaners because they need him. That seems like a great offer for Ruto. At least he will get protection in that strange world. However, he considers his coins and rejects the offer immediately. Why did he do that? You will find out soon.